Cold War is a historical period drama set during the 1950s and 60s, and it is a love story between a musical director and a singer who meet in the ruins of post-war Poland just as communism is about to set in. Being vastly different in backgrounds and temperaments, they are just as mismatched as they are right for each other, and the film follows their on-again, off-again relationship throughout a period of 15 years as the political climate pushes them to relocate from country to country, and as certain character flaws and unfortunate twists of fate continuously prevent them from ending up being together for good. This is like the ultimate no-fat movie, executed with laser precision in every single of its aspect. Apparently the filmmakers worked very hard on every single frame and every single sound to get it just perfect. Now, it's an incredibly short film, it doesn't have a very complex plot, there isn't all that much going on, and there aren't a lot of cuts, but the images and the jump cuts that are present here are pretty fucking impressive, to say the least. They really managed to make every single aspect of filmmaking feel like it's taking center stage. Everything about this film feels so incredibly calibrated and calculated. Everything from the music, to the sound design, to the makeup, to the hair and the clothing, and even the performances. This film is basically a love letter to classic cinema, right down to its setting and its story. Being about this impossible love in impossible times, obviously it reminded me of such classic films as Casablanca and Notorious, and I just love the way this director uses the 4:3 aspect ratio. I think it's actually quite perfect for these sort of very intimate and very character-driven romantic stories. Obviously it's just perfect for close-ups, and I think it's very interesting how this director can really make a very narrow and very small aspect ratio feel very wide. There's a lot of meticulous orchestration going on here, you know? There are frames in this film that have a lot of detail in them. There's a lot of movement and there are a lot of characters in the background, but you never lose sight of the main point of focus, of the main character. And I also love the way he uses negative space as well. He has this very signature way he uses characters by putting them in the lower left part of the frame, while leaving the rest of the frame completely unused. The story is basically about Victor discovering Zula when traveling Poland in the late 40s to search for folk singers to fill up a troupe, just around the time communism is about to rear its ugly head. And he immediately recognizes her talent, starts pushing her forward, and she is so good in fact that she propels his career to greater heights as well. They both end up ultimately fleeing Poland because, you know, fuck communism, fuck propaganda, and fuck Stalin's big dumb face. They both end up in Paris by the late 50s, and this is where something incredibly interesting starts happening in the film. You see, everything about the film pretty much starts to shift. The colors seem to have more contrast, the frames seem to have more depth to them and to have more layers to them. They don't have this sort of dry, flat, washed out look they had when they were still in Poland. This is where you truly get the sense in the film that you really are dealing with two completely different worlds. You have Eastern Europe and then you have Western Europe, and I think those are differences that still exist in present-day Europe as well. What's more, the music is vastly different. We go from having this very traditional Polish folk music that's very much driven by Russian propaganda. This is something that's very rhythmic and very precise. It's this sort of very raw form of music that's kind of rough around the edges. And then in Paris we go to jazz, you know, we go to this sort of very loose and very playful music that's also kind of quite sexy even. And I think the music in the film reflects the story perfectly, especially the character of Zula, who goes from being a girl in the beginning of the film when she is in Poland, to being, later on in Paris, being what we would assume to be a fully fledged woman. You know, someone in complete control of her femininity, of her sexuality, and of her career, and of her life, basically. Obviously, a little bit later on, it turns out to not be quite the case. She is a little bit of a fuck-up. She appears to be the sort of person who is really not able to, or doesn't want to, completely let go of her Eastern European origins. She really doesn't appear to be the person who is completely able to adapt, you know what I mean? She especially becomes upset later on about a song she is supposed to sing, a song she has been singing in the past all the time, that has been recently translated and readapted from Polish to French by one of Victor's former lovers. The two women actually meet and they have a little bit of a verbal altercation in which Zula complains that she doesn't really understand the lyrics of the French version of the song. More specifically, she doesn't really seem to understand a certain metaphor in the song, and that metaphor is that the pendulum killed time. The other woman explains to her that it means basically that time really doesn't matter when you are in love. I think that's basically the whole film in a nutshell. time really doesn't seem to matter so much in this film. I mean, we go through a period of 15 years, jumping a lot, leaping a lot through time, you know, sometimes leaping a year or 2 years or 3 years or sometimes even more. And I think this pacing, this sort of choice to tell this story kind of backfires a little bit for the film. You see, because they chose to tell this story this way and to really meticulously work on every single frame all the time, it was really hard for the actors because they had to wait a lot between every single take. And the main actress who plays Azula even said that she really had to tune out emotionally after a while. And I think that was the reason why I really didn't feel any emotion in this film, and I really didn't feel the weight of this story, which was very strange because there's a lot of like very serious stuff that happens in this film. You know, the Cold War, people having to flee their country, people having to spy on each other, people cheating on each other, you know, imprisonment, and the ending, my god, the ending. I mean, it's something I really don't want to spoil if you haven't seen the film yet, but the ending I thought it's to be something incredibly somber and incredibly dark, and I really didn't feel the weight of that at all. And an even bigger problem I had is that I wasn't really all that fond of these two characters. I wasn't really all that crazy about this couple, guys. I mean, I really didn't understand their reasoning at the end of the day. I mean, first they want to flee Poland and go to Paris. They end up doing that, both of them. They want to play music. They end up playing music together. And then what happens is that Zula is kind of unhappy with the music they are making, is kind of unhappy with the record they made, because she kind of feels like she's kind of losing her identity. She kind of feels like she had to change so much about her and about the music that it started becoming her career defining her instead of her defining her career. He himself kind of starts losing faith in her abilities as a singer. He kind of starts losing faith in her talents, and obviously the relationship falls apart. She ends up going back to Poland, and then he ends up going back after her. And I was like, seriously, this is a love story, guys? I mean, come on. To be completely honest with you, these two felt to me as much more like fuck buddies rather than actual lovers. So, there you go, Cold War. Beautiful movie, great performances even. Wasn't crazy about the story. So that was my 2 cents, folks, what can I say? My question to you guys would be, what are some of your favorite films about impossible love and impossible times? Really curious to know about your answers. Don't forget to leave them down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching my review as always. I appreciate it. I love you for it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so I can see you guys later in other reviews as well. And what can I say? I love you. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.